This is a graphic organizer that goes over how to find the slope and the y-intercept. When you write an equation, you need two things, slope and the y-intercept. And if you use this formula, the slope-intercept formula, you will be able to write any equation. So we're going to first work on the slope side through different examples of how we can do different techniques of finding slope. When you're looking with a table, you can find the change in the x and the y, and then you divide the change in the y by the change of the x. So in this table, we'll write change of y divided by change of x. We'll look at the y side and we'll see, hey, they're counting by 5s. So the change in y is 5. On the x side, they're counting by 2s. The slope is 5 divided by 2, which is 5/2. In an equation, we know that the slope is also known as the coefficient, but sometimes that's hidden. If we would write our equation into addition by keeping the first number, changing subtraction to addition, and changing the sign of the second number to its opposite, we can see that our slope is -3 in this example. Down here with 2 points, there are 2 different ways that you can find the slope. You can first use the technique of finding the change in the y divided by the change in the x, or you can use this formula. I'm going to use this formula because this formula is technically telling us this is how we find the change in the y and this is how we find the change in the x. So when I use this formula, I make sure that I label what's x and what's y so I don't get lost. I then will decide what's my first coordinate point and what's my second coordinate point. So here's my first one. So these are going to be all my x1, y1, and these are going to be all my second one. It says y2 minus y1. So I'll take the second y value, which is 3, and subtract it by 2. And since I started with this coordinate point, I need to start with this one. So I'll do my x2 and subtract my x1. On the top, I have 3 minus 2, which is 1. On the bottom, I have a -2 minus 8, which is the same as -2 plus a -8, which is a -10. My slope is -1/10. It's better to write the negative in the numerator so that it's not lost in the denominator. When given the graph, we need to find 2 pretty points. So in this case, I see a pretty point here and then one here. And then we just need to make sure we do the rise over the run. So if I write rise over run like it's written here, then I'm going to go from the left point to the right point. In this case, I see that I am going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And since it's down, it's a -4, so that's my rise. And then I will go right 3. So my slope is -4/3. Make sure that you remember that left and down are negative directions and up and right are positive directions. Now looking at the y-intercept, when given a graph, we just have to find that coordinate point where the line crosses the y-axis, because that is the y-intercept. And that coordinate point in this case would be 0, 1. So that means my b value is just 1. In the equation, it is the number that is added on. So just like we did in the last equation example over here, we do want to make sure that we don't confuse the subtraction. We rewrite that into addition if we need to, so that we know that our b value in this case, or the y-intercept, is -4. When given a table, we'll look at where x is 0, and sometimes this is found and other times we need to calculate it. But in this case, I can see that right here, my b value is -5. If I needed to find where x was 0, I can use different techniques, but I would also need to know the slope so I could count backwards or forwards depending on what my table is. This is probably the newest way of finding the y-intercept. And it's when they give you a slope and a point. Since all of these equations follow this formula, y equals mx plus b, I'm going to use that to help me get the b value or the y-intercept. So I'll write y equals mx plus b. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, since they gave me so much information, is I'm just going to substitute this all in where it belongs. They gave me -2, that's my slope, so that goes here. They gave me an x value, so that gets multiplied by my slope. They also gave me a y value, that's over here. I don't know my b value, but I'm trying to find that. So I'm just going to leave that as plus b. I'm going to solve my equation. The first step is simplifying it. And then if I add 12 on both sides, I can see that my b value will be 22. These are not all the ways that you'll need to know how to find slope and y-intercept, but they're the most popular ways that you will see on future tests and future concepts in algebra.